The Henderson house had always been the epitome of suburban perfection. Manicured lawns, a white picket fence, and a couple that seemed to have it all figured out. Marcus Henderson, a respected architect, and his wife Lisa, a marketing executive, were the kind of couple everyone admired from afar. Their annual summer barbecue was the social event of the season, where neighbors and friends gathered to celebrate life, success, and the illusion of having it all together. This year's party was no different, at least on the surface. The backyard was decorated with string lights that cast a warm glow over the guests. The smell of grilled steaks and burgers filled the air, mixed with laughter and the clinking of wine glasses. Marcus stood by the grill, his easy smile firmly in place as he flipped burgers and exchanged pleasantries with guests. He looked relaxed, happy even. But those who knew him well might have noticed the tension in his shoulders, the way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Lisa moved through the crowd like a queen holding court. Her sundress was designer, her hair perfectly styled, her laugh just a touch too loud. She had always been the more outgoing of the two, the one who commanded attention in any room she entered. Tonight she seemed particularly animated, her movements quick and nervous as if she were performing for an invisible audience. "Lisa, you look absolutely radiant," gushed Monica Friedman, one of their neighbors. "What's your secret?" "You and Marcus seem happier than ever." Lisa's smile widened and she leaned in conspiratorially. "Oh, just keeping things fresh. Actually, there's something I've been meaning to share with everyone." Marcus's best friend, Jake Sullivan, stood near the bar, nursing a craft beer and watching the scene unfold with barely concealed disgust. Jake had known Marcus since college, had been his best man at the wedding, and had watched their marriage evolve over the past 8 years. He had also, unfortunately, been witness to something he wished he could unsee. It had happened the previous week at the Crimson Lounge, an upscale bar downtown. Jake had been there for a business dinner when he spotted Lisa at a corner booth. At first he thought nothing of it, until he saw the man she was with. The way they leaned into each other, the intimate touches, the kiss that left no room for misinterpretation. Jake had frozen, his stomach turning as he watched Marcus's wife betray him in plain sight. He had agonized over whether to tell Marcus. They were best friends, brothers in all but blood. But how do you destroy someone's world with information like that? Jake had decided to wait, to look for the right moment, to somehow verify what he'd seen before dropping that nuclear bomb on his friend's life. Now, watching Lisa preen and posture at the party, Jake felt his anger rising. She had no shame, no remorse. She was going about her life as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't shattered the foundation of her marriage with her selfishness. "Everyone, can I have your attention, please?" Lisa's voice cut through the chatter, and the party guests gradually quieted, turning to look at her. She stood on the deck, one hand raised, her face flushed with wine and whatever misguided confidence had possessed her. Marcus looked up from the grill, confusion crossing his features. They hadn't planned any announcements. His eyes found Jake's across the yard, and something unspoken passed between them, a premonition of disaster. "I just wanted to take a moment to thank you all for coming tonight," Lisa began, her voice carrying across the yard. "Marcus and I are so grateful to have such wonderful friends and neighbors. And because you're all so important to us, I want to share something exciting." Jake set down his beer, his jaw clenching. He had a terrible feeling about where this was going. "Marcus and I have made a decision about our relationship," Lisa continued, her eyes sparkling with what she clearly thought was sophisticated worldliness. "We've decided to embrace a more modern approach to marriage. We're in an open relationship now." The silence that followed was deafening. The revelation hung in the air like smoke from the grill, thick and suffocating. Marcus's hand froze mid-flip, a burger threatening to slide off the spatula onto the ground. His face had gone pale, then red, cycling through emotions too quickly to track. Around the yard, guests exchanged bewildered glances, unsure whether this was some kind of joke or if Lisa Henderson had actually just announced her marriage was now open at a suburban barbecue. What?" someone whispered loudly enough for others to hear. Lisa seemed oblivious to the discomfort rippling through the crowd. If anything, she appeared energized by the attention, interpreting the stunned silence as fascination rather than horror. She laughed, a brittle sound that didn't match the gravity of what she'd just disclosed. I know, it sounds unconventional," she continued, gesturing with her wineglass in a way that suggested she'd had more than a few refills. But Marcus and I have been doing a lot of reading, a lot of soul-searching, and we've decided that traditional monogamy is just so limiting. We love each other deeply, but we also believe that love isn't a finite resource. We can explore connections with other people while still maintaining our commitment to each other. Marcus finally found his voice, though it came out strangled. Lisa, maybe we should... It's liberating, really, she talked over him, her confidence growing with each word. We're not confined by outdated social constructs. We're evolved enough to recognize that humans aren't naturally monogamous, and pretending otherwise only leads to resentment and secrecy. This way, everything is honest and open. Jake watched Marcus's face crumble, watched his friend realize that not only had his wife unilaterally decided to redefine their marriage, but she'd also chosen to broadcast it to their entire social circle without his knowledge or consent. The humiliation was palpable, radiating off Marcus in waves. I think what's most important, Lisa continued, warming to her subject like a TED Talk speaker, is that we're setting an example. How many marriages fail because of infidelity? Because people feel trapped? We're removing that trap. We're saying, we trust each other enough to explore our individual desires while staying committed to our partnership. Monica Friedman's husband, Tom, cleared his throat awkwardly. That's certainly a choice you two have made together. Exactly, Lisa beamed, apparently mishearing or ignoring the skepticism in his tone. Together, that's the key. Mutual respect and communication. Jake felt something snap inside him. The hypocrisy was too much. Here was Lisa, waxing poetic about honesty and communication when she'd been sneaking around behind Marcus's back. The open relationship announcement wasn't about evolution or modern thinking. It was about retroactive permission. She was trying to legitimize her affair by rebranding their marriage without Marcus's input. Communication, huh? Jake's voice cut through Lisa's monologue, sharp and cold. That's interesting. Lisa's eyes swiveled to him, her smile faltering slightly at his tone. Sorry, Jake? I said that's interesting, Jake repeated, pushing off from the bar where he'd been leaning. He walked closer to the deck, his movements deliberate. You're talking about communication and honesty, and I'm just curious. When exactly did you and Marcus have this conversation about opening your marriage? Marcus's eyes widened, recognizing something dangerous in his friend's demeanor. Jake, don't... Because from where I'm standing, Jake continued, his voice growing harder, it looks like Marcus is hearing about this for the first time, along with the rest of us. Lisa's face flushed deeper, but she maintained her composure. Of course we discussed it. This isn't something you decide unilaterally, isn't it? Jake challenged. Because you seem pretty comfortable making unilateral decisions. The tension in the yard had shifted from awkward to dangerous. Guests who had been contemplating quiet exits were now rooted to the spot, sensing drama about to unfold. Marcus set down the spatula and stepped away from the grill, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Jake, I appreciate your concern for our marriage, Lisa said, her voice taking on a condescending edge. But this is really between Marcus and me. We've thought this through carefully. We're both adults who understand that love doesn't have to be possessive or restrictive. Love, Jake repeated, the word dripping with scorn. Is that what you call it? I don't appreciate your tone, Lisa snapped, her mask of sophisticated enlightenment cracking. What Marcus and I do in our marriage is our business. You made it everyone's business when you announced it at a party, Jake shot back. You stood up here and made this grand proclamation about openness and honesty. So let's be honest. Marcus stepped forward, placing himself partially between Jake and Lisa. Jake, whatever you're thinking, don't. But Jake was done protecting Lisa's secret. He was done watching his best friend be humiliated. Tell them when you decided to open the relationship, Lisa. Was it before or after last Tuesday night at the Crimson Lounge? The color drained from Lisa's face. Around the yard, guests began to understand that they were witnessing something far more explosive than an unconventional lifestyle announcement. I don't know what you're talking about, Lisa said, but her voice had lost its confidence, don't you? Jake's smile was sharp and humorless. The question hung in the air like an executioner's blade. Lisa's confident facade cracked visibly, her wine glass trembling in her hand. Around the yard, the guests had transformed from uncomfortable observers into a captive audience, sensing they were about to witness the spectacular implosion of what they'd always considered a model marriage. Jake, please. Marcus said quietly, but there was resignation in his voice. He already knew. Perhaps he'd known for longer than he wanted to admit. Picking up on the signs he'd tried to ignore. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the distance that had crept into their marriage like frost spreading across a window. Please what? Jake demanded, his voice rising. Please keep covering for her? Please keep pretending that what she's calling an open relationship isn't just a way to legitimize cheating after the fact? That's not... You're twisting things, Lisa stammered, looking around desperately for support but finding only shocked faces and averted eyes. Marcus, tell him. Tell them we discussed this. Marcus's silence spoke volumes. He stood there, shoulders slumped, looking older than his 36 years. The hurt in his eyes was devastating to witness, a raw wound exposed to dozens of their friends and neighbors. The Crimson Lounge, Jake continued relentlessly, last Tuesday, around 9 o'clock. You were in a corner booth with a guy in a gray suit. Tall dark hair, looked like he spent too much time at the gym. You two were very friendly. The kind of friendly that married people shouldn't be with anyone but their spouse. Lisa's wine glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the deck. The sound seemed to release everyone from their frozen state. Several people gasped, others whispered to their neighbors, and someone near the back began to edge toward the gate. That's not... I can explain, Lisa said, her voice rising with panic. Marcus, please let me explain. Explain what? Marcus finally spoke, his voice hollow. Explain why I'm learning about my marriage being open at the same time as everyone else? Or explain who you were with at the Crimson Lounge. His name is Derek, Jake supplied coldly. I asked the bartender. Apparently you two are regulars. They know your drink orders. Lisa's face contorted through several emotions. Anger, fear, desperation, and finally something like defiance. So what? So what if I met someone? You're acting like I committed some terrible crime. People have needs, Marcus. I have needs that weren't being met. The audacity of the statement made several guests gasp audibly. Monica Friedman actually took a step back as if Lisa's words were physically repulsive. Needs that weren't being met? Marcus repeated, his voice dangerous in its quietness. I've worked 12-hour days to build my practice so you could have this house, those clothes, these parties. I've supported your career, your hobbies, your book club, your girls' trips. What needs exactly weren't being met? Emotional needs, Lisa shouted, tears beginning to stream down her face, though whether from genuine emotion or desperate manipulation was unclear. You're never here, Marcus. And when you are, you're distant, buried in blueprints and building codes. I needed someone to see me, to appreciate me. So you cheated, Jake stated flatly. Let's call it what it is. You had an affair, probably for months based on what the bartender said, and now you're trying to retroactively make it okay by pretending you and Marcus agreed to an open marriage. We could have agreed, Lisa insisted, turning back to Marcus with pleading eyes. If you had been paying attention, if you had cared about what I needed, we could have discussed it. But you were always too busy, too tired, too focused on work. So it's my fault you cheated? Marcus asked. And there was a terrible calmness in his voice now. I worked too much, so you had no choice but to sleep with someone else? That's not what I'm saying. Oh, that's exactly what you're saying, Marcus interrupted. You're standing here in front of everyone we know trying to blame me for your choices. You didn't communicate. You didn't tell me you were unhappy. You didn't suggest counseling or ask for more time together or any of the things people in actual partnerships do. You just went out and found someone else, and now you're trying to make yourself the victim. Lisa's tears were flowing freely now, her carefully applied makeup running in dark streams down her face. I just wanted to feel wanted again. Is that so wrong? Wanting to feel wanted isn't wrong, Jake interjected. Cheating on your husband and then announcing to 40 people that your marriage is open to justify it? Yeah, that's pretty damn wrong. Tom Friedman, perhaps feeling brave or perhaps just unable to stand the tension any longer, spoke up. Maybe we should all give you folks some privacy to sort this out. No, Marcus said sharply. No, stay. She wanted to make this public. She wanted everyone to know about our modern, evolved marriage. So let's be public about all of it. He turned to Lisa, and the look on his face was devastating in its coldness. How long? Marcus, please, how long? Lisa's shoulders sagged in defeat. 4 months. The number landed like a physical blow. 4 months. A third of a year. Not a mistake, not a moment of weakness, but a sustained deception. Marcus absorbed the information with a nod, as if it confirmed something he'd suspected but hoped wasn't true. Did you love him? He asked. I don't know, Lisa whispered. Maybe, I don't know. But you knew you didn't love me anymore. That's not true. I do love you, Marcus. You just loved yourself more, Marcus finished. You loved what you wanted more than you respected what we had. And instead of having the courage to either fix our marriage or end it honestly, you took the coward's way out. The party had fully devolved into a spectator event. Though several guests were now actively uncomfortable with their role as audience members, some had begun gathering their belongings, murmuring excuses about babysitters and early mornings, but most remained frozen, unable to look away from the destruction of the Henderson marriage. Lisa had sunk down onto one of the deck chairs, her head in her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. But Marcus wasn't done. Something had broken loose in him. Years of swallowed frustrations and overlooked warning signs now pouring out in a torrent. You want to know what's really fascinating about this? Marcus continued, his voice gaining strength. The timing. You announced this open relationship tonight, at a party you insisted we have. You picked the guest list. You planned the menu. You made sure everyone important to us was here. He looked around at the assembled guests, his gaze sweeping across confused neighbors and uncomfortable friends. She made sure you were all here because she knew. She knew Jake saw her. She must have seen him at the bar or heard from someone that he was there, so she orchestrated this whole thing to control the narrative. Jake's eyes widened slightly as he processed this. It made horrifying sense. Lisa's unusual insistence on this particular party, her specific guest list, her carefully rehearsed speech about modern relationships. It had all been planned. You were going to spin it before I could tell him the truth, Jake said, understanding dawning. You were going to make it seem like you had permission all along. Lisa looked up, her face a mess of tears and smeared makeup, and for a moment, she looked like she might deny it. Then something in her expression shifted to resignation, then to anger. What was I supposed to do? She demanded, her voice rising. Wait for you to run to Marcus with your self-righteous revelation? Let you paint me as the villain when the truth is so much more complicated. The truth? Marcus laughed bitterly. Please, Lisa, enlighten us about the complicated truth. The truth is that our marriage has been dying for 2 years, Lisa shouted, standing up suddenly, her sadness transforming into rage. You know it, I know it. And if these people spent any real time with us instead of just admiring our perfect house and perfect parties, they'd know it too. Monica Friedman looked like she wanted to sink into the ground. Several other guests shifted uncomfortably, recognizing that there might be a grain of truth in Lisa's accusation. They had admired the Hendersons from a distance, projected their own fantasies of successful marriage onto them without ever looking closer. You're right, Marcus said, surprising everyone. Our marriage was struggling. I was working too much. We'd grown distant. But you know what people do when their marriage is dying, Lisa? They talk about it. They go to therapy. They make an effort to reconnect. They don't just give up and find someone else while maintaining the illusion that everything is fine. I tried talking to you, Lisa insisted. Dozens of times. But you were always too tired or too busy or too stressed. Not now, Lisa. Can we talk about this later, Lisa? I have a deadline, Lisa. When was I supposed to get through to you? So 4 months ago, you just stopped trying and started sleeping with Derek instead. Marcus challenged. I ran into him at a work conference, Lisa said, her voice dropping. We had drinks, we talked, and he listened, Marcus. He actually listened. He asked about my day, my dreams, my feelings. When was the last time you asked me how I was feeling? Probably around the same time you last told me the truth, Marcus shot back. The verbal sparring had captivated the crowd, but Jake could see it was destroying Marcus. His best friend was trying to maintain his anger as a shield against the deeper pain of betrayal and loss. Jake wanted to end this, to get Marcus away from this toxic situation and these voyeuristic witnesses. You know what the worst part of this is? Marcus said, his voice cracking slightly. It's not even the cheating. People cheat. Marriages fail. That's life. The worst part is that you took away my choice. You decided our marriage was over. You decided to pursue someone else. You decided to tell everyone we were in an open relationship, and you decided to do it all without giving me any say in my own life. Lisa flinched at that, and for the first time, genuine remorse seemed to cross her features. I didn't mean for it to happen this way. How did you mean for it to happen? Marcus asked. Did you think I'd just go along with this? That I'd smile and nod while you legitimized your affair? Or did you think you could just rewrite history, and I'd be too embarrassed to contradict you in front of everyone? I thought, Lisa trailed off, then tried again. I thought maybe if it was out in the open we could find a way to make it work. That maybe you'd understand. Understand what? That you're a liar? Marcus's voice had gone cold again. That you're manipulative? That you care more about appearances and your own desires than about integrity or respect? Don't you dare judge me! Lisa snapped, her anger flaring again. You think you're so perfect? You checked out of this marriage long before I did. You buried yourself in work and left me alone. You're just as responsible for where we are. Maybe I am, Marcus conceded. Maybe I wasn't the husband you needed. But I never betrayed you. I never lied to you. I never humiliated you in front of everyone we know. Tom Friedman tried again to intervene. Listen, why don't we all just— No, Lisa said sharply, turning on him. No, you don't get to play peacemaker and then go home and gossip about this with Monica. None of you do. You all came here for the show, so watch it. Watch what happens when perfect people turn out to be human. We're leaving, Monica announced, grabbing Tom's arm. We should go. Her declaration seemed to break the spell. Suddenly everyone was moving, gathering purses and telling children to hurry up. The mass exodus was swift and uncomfortable. Guests avoiding eye contact with both Marcus and Lisa as they fled toward the gate. Within 5 minutes, the yard was empty except for Marcus, Lisa, and Jake. The silence that followed the departure was somehow worse than the confrontation. The remnants of the party looked obscene in the aftermath. Half-eaten burgers on paper plates, abandoned drinks sweating in the warm evening air, the string lights still twinkling cheerfully overhead as if nothing catastrophic had occurred beneath them. Marcus stood by the now-cold grill staring at nothing. Lisa had collapsed back into the deck chair, no longer crying but hollow-eyed and empty. Jake remained near the bar, uncertain whether to stay or go, but unwilling to leave his friend alone. You should probably leave too, Marcus finally said, his voice flat and exhausted. I'm not going anywhere, Jake replied firmly. I mean it, Jake, Marcus's voice broke. I need to figure out what happens next. What happens next is you don't do this alone, Jake said, moving closer. What happens next is you remember that you have people who care about you, who have your back. Lisa looked up at that, her expression bitter. How noble. The loyal friend protecting Marcus from his terrible wife. Protecting him from you wasn't my job until you made it my job. Jake retorted. I didn't want to be the one to tell him. I spent a week agonizing over it. But watching you stand up there and play the enlightened, evolved woman while you lied to everyone, I couldn't stomach it. You destroyed my marriage, Lisa said, her voice venomous. You destroyed your marriage, Jake corrected. I just refused to let you rewrite the story. Marcus held up a hand, stopping the argument. Enough. Both of you, just enough. He turned to Lisa, and his face was a mask of exhausted resignation. I want you to leave. This is my house too, Lisa protested. I don't care. Pack a bag and go to a hotel, go to Derek's place, go wherever you want. But I can't look at you right now. I can't be in the same space as you. Marcus, we need to talk about this. Talk about what? Marcus's voice rose again. About how you've been cheating for 4 months? About how you tried to manipulate everyone tonight? About how our entire marriage has apparently been a lie? What's left to talk about, Lisa? Our future, Lisa said desperately. What we're going to do. Whether there's any way to fix this. Marcus laughed, a sound completely devoid of humor. Fix this? You don't fix this, Lisa. This is broken beyond repair. You took a sledgehammer to everything we built, and you did it deliberately, repeatedly, for months. People recover from affairs, Lisa insisted, standing up. Couples work through infidelity all the time. If you're willing to try— I'm not, Marcus cut her off. I'm not willing to try. I'm not willing to spend years in therapy trying to rebuild trust with someone who just proved they don't respect me enough to be honest. I'm not willing to wonder every time you're late from work or go on a business trip whether you're with him. I'm not willing to live like that. The finality in his voice seemed to penetrate Lisa's defenses. She sank back down, fresh tears starting to fall. So that's it? 8 years of marriage and you're just done? You were done 4 months ago, Marcus pointed out. You just didn't have the courage to say it. Lisa sat in silence for a long moment, then stood with as much dignity as she could muster. I'll get some things and stay at a hotel. But Marcus, whatever you think of me, I did love you. I do love you. No, Marcus said quietly. You loved the idea of me. You loved what I represented, what we looked like together, the life we built. But you didn't love me enough to be faithful. And you didn't respect me enough to be honest. That's not love. Lisa opened her mouth as if to argue, then closed it again. She walked into the house without another word, her heels clicking on the deck boards, each step sounding like a countdown to the end of their marriage. Jake moved to stand beside Marcus, both of them staring at the mess of the abandoned party. You okay? No, Marcus said honestly. I'm really not. But I will be. You sure about making her leave tonight? Maybe you should take some time to think. I've been thinking for months, Jake. I just didn't want to admit what I was thinking about. Marcus rubbed his face with both hands. I noticed things. The phone calls she'd take in another room. The new lingerie that never seemed to be for me. The way she'd come home from work events smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. I noticed, but I didn't want to know, you know? Jake nodded, understanding. It's easier to pretend everything's fine than to face the fact that it's falling apart. Exactly. And I let myself be the workaholic she accused me of being, because it was easier than confronting what was really happening. I buried myself in projects and deadlines because then I didn't have to look at my failing marriage. Marcus's voice caught. Maybe she's right. Maybe I checked out first. Don't do that, Jake said sharply. Don't take responsibility for her choices. Yeah, maybe you worked too much. Maybe you both let the marriage drift. But when she felt disconnected, she had options. Talk to you, suggest counseling, or honestly end things. Instead, she chose to cheat and lie. That's on her, not you. They heard movement inside the house, Lisa presumably packing. Marcus flinched at a loud thump, what sounded like a suitcase being dropped. What do I do now? Marcus asked quietly. Everything I built was with her. This house, this life, our friends, half of whom probably think I'm the victim, and half of whom probably think I drove her to it. You rebuild, Jake said simply. You figure out who you are without her. You remember that you're Marcus Henderson, a brilliant architect with a successful practice, good friends, and a whole life ahead of you. A divorced life, Marcus said bitterly. Better divorced and honest than married and miserable, Jake countered. And for what it's worth, you handled that with more grace than I would have. I wanted to say a lot worse things to her. Marcus managed a weak smile. You said plenty. Good to know you didn't seem shy last week. That was brutal. She had it coming, Jake said unapologetically. Standing up there, pretending to be this enlightened, evolved person, spouting bullshit about openness and honesty while lying to everyone, especially you. Someone needed to call her out. Lisa emerged from the house carrying a large suitcase and a designer bag. Her face was freshly washed, the dramatic makeup removed, making her look younger and more vulnerable. She set the bags down at the edge of the deck and looked at Marcus one more time. I'll call you tomorrow, she said. We need to discuss logistics, lawyers, the house, finances. Have your lawyer call my lawyer, Marcus replied, not looking at her. Marcus, please. Can't we at least be civil about this? You want civil? Marcus finally met her eyes. You stood in front of everyone we know and tried to humiliate me. You've been lying to me for months. You betrayed every vow we made. But sure, Lisa, I'll be civil. I won't contest the divorce. I'll split everything fairly. I'll even let you spin whatever story you want to your friends about why we ended. But don't ask me to be your friend. Don't ask me to make this easy for you emotionally. You burned that bridge when you decided to set our marriage on fire. Lisa's face crumpled, but she nodded. She picked up her bags, walked to her car, and drove away. The sound of her engine faded into the distance, leaving Marcus and Jake standing in the wreckage of what had been, just hours earlier, a celebration. Come on, Jake said, clapping Marcus on the shoulder. Let's clean this up, and then we're going to order pizza and watch terrible action movies. Tomorrow you can start dealing with everything, but tonight, you're just going to exist. Marcus looked around at the debris of the party, the abandoned food, the empty glasses, the decorations that had witnessed his public humiliation. Then he looked at Jake, really looked at him, and felt a wave of gratitude for this friendship that had survived college, career changes, and now the implosion of his marriage. Yeah, he said finally. Yeah, okay. As they started gathering paper plates and stacking cups, Marcus felt something shift inside him. The pain was still there, sharp and overwhelming, but underneath it was something else. Relief. Relief that the pretending was over. Relief that he didn't have to keep ignoring the signs or making excuses. Relief that he could start rebuilding his life on a foundation of truth instead of comfortable lies. "You know what the crazy thing is?" Marcus said as he dumped a handful of trash into a garbage bag. "Part of me still loves her. Even after everything, part of me wants to run after her and beg her to come back and promise to be better." "That's not crazy," Jake said. "That's human. You can't just turn off 8 years of feelings because she turned out to be different than you thought." "How do I get past this?" "One day at a time," Jake replied. "Some days will be harder than others. Some days you'll be angry. Some days you'll be sad, and some days you'll be okay. Eventually, the okay days will outnumber the bad ones." They worked in companionable silence for a while, restoring order to the chaos. As Marcus took down the string lights, he thought about how appropriate it was, dismantling the decorations of a party that had celebrated a lie, putting away the trappings of a life that no longer existed. His phone buzzed with a text. Then another, and another. Word had spread quickly, as he'd known it would. Some messages were supportive, others were curious. A few were from people who claimed they'd always known something was off. He turned off his phone without reading most of them. "They'll talk about this for months," Marcus said. "The Henderson marriage implosion. It'll be the biggest scandal in the neighborhood until someone else's dirty laundry gets aired." "Let them talk," Jake said. "Anyone who matters will stand by you. The rest are just background noise." As the night deepened and they finally finished cleaning, Marcus took one last look at the empty backyard. Tomorrow he'd have to start the practical process of dismantling a marriage. Lawyers, accountants, dividing possessions and memories. Tomorrow he'd have to figure out who Marcus Henderson was as a single man, not half of Marcus and Lisa. Tomorrow he'd have to start building a new life from the rubble of the old one. But tonight he had a friend, a pizza on the way, and the first honest moment he'd had in months. It wasn't much, but it was a start. And sometimes, Marcus realized, that's all you need. A starting point and the courage to take the first step forward, even when you can't see where the path leads. "Thanks for having my back," Marcus said as they headed inside. "Always," Jake replied. "That's what friends do." Behind them, the backyard stood empty, the scene of both a party and a reckoning. The string lights were coiled in a box. The grill was cooling, and the only evidence of what had transpired was the faint scent of smoke lingering in the air, a reminder that sometimes things have to burn down completely before you can rebuild them into something stronger and more true.